Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ENER Club, empowering a network of entrepreneurs in the real world. And we're being hosted by the HEARTtalk podcast. And we are live. And this is Friday. It's your day. And thank you so much for joining us at lunchtime. This is Table Talk. And today we have a very, very interesting conversation, which I believe is one of the key motivators of communication in Kuala Lumpur. So before I invite my guest today, remember, there must be something that effective people are doing differently. And that is the art of communication. Everybody can communicate. Only few can connect. And that connection requires an art. And so today I'm delighted that we have a key communication tutor, a coach, a leading entrepreneur in Kuala Lumpur. And so join me as I welcome Kamine. And I'm going to say your surname and I hope I get it right. And so it's Kamine Kethieswaranathan. How's that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I got it bullseye. Listen, welcome to the HEARTtalk and welcome to the ENER Club.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charles, for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You know, I was just talking to my nurses and, having worked for 40 years as a doctor and 35 years as a plastic surgeon, I have found that the key to winning a woman's heart is if you can communicate with her and you can connect with her. Okay.
We look forward to real connections.
That's right. That's right. Because it's an art, and I found that when you're able to connect, people will listen, people will believe, and they will follow. And so when I was sourcing out LinkedIn, and I was looking at all these wonderful, famous people, doing things, that I caught you. And the reason was because there was a lady sitting there and giving her testimonies and all that. And you were sitting in the car and,
Right.
And you were doing a video. And that video, I think it was a 3-minute clip. I'm not sure how long it was, but you were able to communicate and get responses from people. Now, this is the art that no matter where we are, no matter what surroundings we are in, whatever environment we're in, whether we are in the car or the bus or anywhere, the source is we can communicate. And people hear your heart. They're not hearing the message, they're hearing the messenger. And I think that, so tell us something about yourself. Go, all for it.
You can find a lot of information on LinkedIn already. I'm sure you already know.
We want to hear it from the communicator herself.
Okay, all right. So my name is Kamine Kethieswaranathan. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And which part do you want to hear, Dr. Charles? Me as a person, as a career person?
Well, touch on your personality and how did this particular field hit a soft spot in you that you could make it a career?
Right. Okay, so I completed my teaching English as second language, all right, about 14 years ago. I started off as a lecturer. I love to connect with people. I think I always tell my participants I'd rather work with computers, but no, that's not true. All right. I love working with people. Okay, so I began as a lecturer and I always wanted to go into the training field. I was very lucky to actually embark onto a training field. And then I saw that communication is the key to everything. Whether a person is angry, whether a person is happy, whether a person is sad, everything about you, your facial expressions, your eye contact, everything is communication. So I thought, okay, this is something that I want to talk about to people. So even if I do an English language training or whether I do a business English training, I harp on communication. I emphasize on communication. For me, if a workplace is happy, one of the core reasons is actually communication. If you go in and you say good morning to people, that makes a lot of difference at the workplace itself. So those are the stories that I tell people. And, true enough, my participants could relate because that is something that I also learned along my career. Okay, so I want to share this with people, and that's how communication became my branding.
So when you talk about training, what kind of training were you doing that this whole thing
Right.
enveloped into an atmosphere of communication. I mean, all of us have been trained. When we are in the operating theater, we don't communicate with anyone except with our instruments.
That's true.
And pass this, pass that, give me this, give me that, suck here, suck there, and everybody is in a kind of a theater, but the operation is going on, and it is just by means of the way we move in our hands and all that. The nurses know what to do and what not to do. What kind of training were you doing that you sourced out this particular it's a talent, Kamine.
Definitely.
I know people who are dumb who come in here and they don't speak even 2 words across and they don't last long. So yeah, tell us, what were you training and doing that you've either found you lacked in it or you felt that you could excel in it?
I started off into English training, like business English, email writing, all right, and a lot of English, like how do people at the exec level use more of business English to excel in their career. And then I started to go into giving situations. Okay, so my participants always come and tell me, like, Kamine, we're so afraid to use English because we will sound wrong, or our grammar will not be at place. Okay, for me, I felt like language, you will never excel in language if you don't try. All right, so I started to break down into, like, why do you have fear on people? And they were like, no, I'm afraid of judgments. Okay, so what's going to happen if people judge you? Nothing, right? I mean, what's the worst thing could happen? Are you going to be eaten by a dragon? That's my famous dialogue in my among my participants, and they'll be like, no. I say, what could happen if people judge you? So that's where I felt like, if people lack judgment at workplace, if people are friends with one another, work is work. Yes, being colleagues is colleague, but there's more beyond, there's more to it. All right, we are spending 8 hours at work. If you multiply that by 5 days in a week, that's like 40 hours of your lifetime gone at work. So are you going to spend that work hours living in fear? I'm going to be judged for using English language wrongly. I'm going to be judged if I say this, if I say that. People are going to look at me. Are we going to live in that fear? Are we going to work in that fear? Because if you're going to work in that fear, you're not going to excel. All right, so that's where you need to touch on communication. You need to have a safe space for communication. That's where I realized, like, you know what, Kamine, English is English, but people need to have the confidence in using English after they understand that they have a safe space to communicate.
Where do you find that safe space?
Among yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, Dr. Charles, let me give you an example, let me relate to what you said just now. Being in an operation theater, you go like, give me that, give me this, give me that, give me this. But after that, right, the most important thing is thanking your team members. Things may have gone wrong, and we learn from that. And your colleagues, your nurses must feel that, okay, I know Dr. Charles is like, he's just a different person in the operation theater, but after that appreciation that they get, that is also one of the keys to communication. I mean, appreciation. And you tell them, you say, look at them and tell them, like, I really thank you guys. I mean, without you, that thing would not have been done. That is communication. Okay. So communication is not just words.
Yep.
It's beyond that.
Okay, now let me take you 5 steps back.
Okay.
Now, would you agree with me that communication, the ability to communicate, starts with the self first, right? So how do you start your day right? Because no one day is the same as the day before. And there's this famous saying that if you're not better today, then what use is there for tomorrow? If you can't get today right. So, for example, you're a communicator, you're a tutor, you got people listening to you. How do you speak to yourself and connect with yourself first before you go out and start communicating and connecting with people outside of you?
Right. I think it's a very meaningful question. Okay. And you are not going to believe this, and I don't know if the audience are going to believe me. I had a very similar question, just like a conversation with one of my colleagues. Something similar to what you asked. Now, I communicate with myself. I always have one part of myself giving me all the negative points or areas of improvements. I'd rather say areas of improvements, okay? And I have another part saying all the positive things, all right? I believe in check and balance. Today, what you do, have you done the right thing? What are the things that you should not have done? What are the things that you should not repeat tomorrow? You must always reflect on yourself and your actions in a day.
What, like journaling?
Journaling, but I don't write. I
Okay.
just do like, it within the mind, all right? So that is where I communicate with myself, all right? You need to know that you are okay, you are good, you're perfect, no matter, how you look, you're just perfect. You need to embrace yourself first. That's how you communicate with yourself. You won't be able to accept others if you don't accept yourself.
Even the mistakes and failings, right?
I've had mistakes. We all have had mistakes, right? But am I going to do the same mistake again tomorrow, knowing that it's a mistake, knowing that I've hurt someone? Yeah, that's the question that you have to ask to yourself.
Okay, so because I know that on the YouTube there are a lot of people who are doing so many things happening on the YouTube, and they're finding ways to communicate to the people who are watching YouTube. I can watch a program and suddenly I got an advert coming out, and that person within 2-3 minutes is trying to communicate something to me so that I sign up and I learn up. But having worked for 40 years, Kamine, I find that the communication to oneself is the biggest hurdle. It's always you against you. And I find that how I live the day is very much a battle within myself. Because so how do you manage the whole day with yourself? I'm sure while you're driving, somebody comes in and cuts in you, and and then you're going to go for a seminar, you're training people.
We are humans. We are humans. We are humans.
Right.
Dr. Charles, let me give you an analogy, all right?
Okay.
I recently moved to Johor Bahru. I think I've shared this with you, all right? And I've engaged into a training session, 8 weeks. Okay, so I have 8 sessions in which I have to travel to Klang Valley, all right? So midway of that training, I started questioning myself, like, I'm so tired. Okay, I'm a human. I'm so tired, all right? Am I doing the right thing? Okay, so that's where all my cost analysis, all right, my energy investment, time investment, all this came in. Okay, but at the bottom line, I know I love what I do. And on Wednesday, I had a photo shoot with my participants. Okay, I had a one-to-one session with my participants, asking them feedback on what I can improve. What they told me was like, Kamine, I learned so much. I came into this class fearing I'm going to speak English and I don't know how my trainer is going to judge me. Today, I'm going to walk out of the room knowing that I don't have to be afraid of judgment. That is how I communicate with myself. I evaluate the pros and cons, and I tell myself what I'm doing is right. End of the day, you have to know what you are doing is something that you like, you don't like, you're forcing yourself. Okay, you need to evaluate these things. This is where the self-communication comes in.
But isn't it also true that when you want to evaluate, the person that is in front of you is the one, the best evaluator, right? I mean, I can walk into the clinic and the girls can look at me and immediately know what kind of frame of mind I'm in. Isn't that always left to the person listening in? Now, the reason why I'm working my way through is talk to us about credibility and communication. That means the person who is communicating has to be somebody who is creditable, isn't it? Walk the talk, so they say. It's so easy to communicate, tell this is the way, these are 5 steps, 4 steps, when they have no steps in their own life at all. So how do you assess that? I mean, as a tutor, the importance of those of us who are listening to you, that credibility is key, character is key to the communicator. There's more than just words. We have to live what we communicate, right?
Right.
Expand.
I often get this request on leadership skills or establishing positive work culture. All right, these are some key areas that my clients come to ask, and Kamine, can you do training on this? I would always emphasize on include modules such as communication and also self-presence. All right, self-presence.
Presence.
Okay, so it's not just about the mind presence, okay, it's also a lot about your self presence, okay, how you carry yourself. And I always tell my participants, it doesn't matter what makeup product you use, okay, the most important thing is carry a smile on your face, look at people and engage. Now, if you are a leader in your organization, okay, if you are a team lead, if you are a supervisor, but if you're not communicating with your employees or team members, if you're not looking at them and engaging when you're speaking, that would not actually create a good environment. Most people, I'm sorry to say, they are so engaged into technology, all right, that they forget the human connection. So if you want workplace to be productive, all right, if you want people to listen to you, but you're not communicating with them, how would credibility come into the place? Okay, how would people put trust? Okay, I am following Kamine because she knows what she's doing. Okay, whereas here I'm holding the phone and I'm talking to her. No, that it doesn't make sense. So this is where the connection should come in, the communication, the human touch should always be there. Right, so we are always influenced by other things, you know, like now we have virtual workspaces, right? But how do you keep employees engaged in a virtual workplaces if you don't have that human communication?
Yeah, I think that's very important, isn't it? Because we are coming more digital monks and digital robots, as opposed to, you know, I mean, especially with the mask, even more worse. You don't know whether they're smiling, crying, or cursing, or what behind the mask. You know what I mean? And so everything is becoming very superficial at the cost of communication. I mean, I think that even to tell somebody I love you, it's a big hassle today, because, you know, the younger people can't engage in the time that we used to be before, where we could just sit and talk. And imagine we are 3 feet apart, and, you know, society is going through such a turmoil just because of communication, you know. So tell me, as we go through this, tell us something that you have experienced as a tutor. I mean, in this whole coaching of communication, give us some top 5 points that you have found the main source of miscommunication or disconnection. You know what I mean? Instead of connecting, you get disconnected.
Okay. People disconnect because, like I mentioned just now, is the fear of judgment. What would she say? Another one is, what would she think? All right. Now, let's just say, for an example, you're walking into an office, okay, and you've had a bad day, all right. You probably wanted to get that breakfast on your way to office, but it was heavy downpour. You couldn't get the breakfast, so you're walking in, and here you are so upset, like, you know what? I couldn't get that nasi lemak that I wanted to, all right. And then you go in there and you see a pile of papers on your table. You're just so upset, but you're not upset with the people around you. But your facial expression and probably the way you put the bag on your chair is going to create some sort of discomfort among the people around you. Okay. Right. And your subordinates are going to think like, I thought I'm going to go and like check with her, but, you know, looking at her facial expression and how she actually just barged into the office, I think now is not a good time.
Right.
But you're actually okay. You're okay if people come and ask you questions. But here, how you behave, how you have portrayed, the impression that you've given other people, people are going to take a step back before they want to come and talk to you. Right? So this is a huge key to communication. Most of the times, often, we don't communicate. We have some sort of judgment in our heads, and that actually drifts us apart.
Right. Half the time, yeah. My chief producer at the back is doing this to me, to listen carefully, because you know, so often we fail to realize that the impact, you know, of being judgmental in everything that we do, it puts us back in a fear. But tell me, communication and setting up boundaries within oneself. How do you overcome that? Because today a lot of people are talking about, give me my space, give me my boundary, and yet they want to communicate. You know what I mean? Where does that come in the workplace?
Workplace, yeah. So we can actually break down into 2 aspects. Okay. So workplace, nowadays, the word flexibility is very much common in corporate world. All right, people want flexibility. I think, before we even look at flexibility, one thing that people should have is actually trust. All right, employers should always trust their employees. And when that happens, flexibility will come automatically. Okay, now for them to trust, communication is also key. Okay, so if you communicate with one another, if you know that, okay, for example, let's say I'm working somewhere and say, okay, Kamine, I don't have any problems with her. She usually updates me things very quickly and she doesn't wait until I ask. That's where trust is developed. Okay, so here you can actually create flexibility. You can move on further. All right, when we are talking about like setting up positive work culture and all. Right, so flexibility is one thing. Now, when it comes to individual, a lot of people want me time. If you actually notice in social media, a lot of people talk about me time. I also tell myself a lot, I need my me time. I don't want to be disturbed. But that is just that one period of, one time, like, it's a period of time in a day or maybe in a week. I wouldn't want to be disturbed because I think spending time for myself, that's where I communicate with myself, is very important. And I always encourage people, go on a road trip, just go by yourself, do things on your own because you need to reflect to yourself. But that does not mean I don't want to communicate with people. I get very upset when people use their headphones and, when they communicate with me, I feel like there's no engagement. So we need to know where are our boundaries. Okay, we need to make sure that we are aware of what we are doing. You can't have a me time when you're having a family dinner. So me time is actually a me time that you take off from everything, not during other times.
No, I mean, perfectly spoken, because, you hit it right on the nail, because we go out for dinner and everyone, each member of the family has got their handphone and they're all in their own kingdom. And that's the price we pay today in the generation that we're living in today, because of digital media, because of all this social media, TikTok, whatever you're ticking and talking, has taken away the source of communication of society, the social gatherings that we get. And now I want to come to something that has plagued my own life, and which is actually very important for many people. And that is the hidden anger that is within us. Okay. I've been noted many times, spoken at and said, you're always angry, and people forget that in the course of work, having worked for so many years, right? You just don't like things to be, not right, basically. So a lot of people in the working place, because of the stress, Kamini, my passion is for what's called the sandwich generation. All right.
Okay.
That's why I'm doing all these, setting up master classes and all that, because I've been through it. I've been in valleys more than in the mountaintops. Okay. And this sandwich generation is from, 30 to 40. People are marrying earlier and earlier. And I'm not sure what kind of communication they're getting, but their children are coming up more and more. And the stress of looking after their own children and looking after their parents, they're sandwiched in between. And they take on everything. And so they lose the art of communicating, because they're communicating to two generations. And there's no choice, because both are, you love both these generations. It's unconditional love. You can't choose. So it's a dilemma. I call it the sandwich generation dilemma. And I think the source and key is communication. I mean, you are right on the right spot at the right time for this particular moment in history, where there's so much of stress. Now tell me, if I have an aptitude to be angry, and if my children were sitting in front of me and they're all doctors, they will say, yeah, he hasn't changed. Okay. So how do you communicate in the working place, marketplace, if there is hidden anger within, there's something is upset and you want to communicate it in a very important meeting? How do you handle it yourself? I'm sure there are moments where you have been angry or upset about something, and then you're going to give a talk on communication. How do you handle that personally? And then give us some tips, and so that we can, live it out. As they say, the best communicator is the one who lives it out.
Okay. now you've said a line that I wanted to say something, but after hearing your last line, I'm like thinking if I should really share this.
Well, go ahead. This is hard talk.
Okay, I am no angel. I'm a human, all right. But how I manage anger has actually changed a lot over time, all right. I have to say that I understood that not every one of them can think like me. So I have two people who I'm working with, all right, and I have an objective. I would actually give them the objective, and I don't go and micromanage them and say whatever process that you want to use, you use. I don't micromanage, all right? That is very, very important, because I think a lot of, sorry to say, but the culture is like a lot of employers actually micromanage, all right? Now, yes, they upset me at times, all right? But I understood that they may have a point. All right. And another thing is, if you're angry, if you're very angry, the least that we could do is actually not say anything and express to them, say, you know what, I'm not in the right state of mind, just give me some time. Because I'm a big believer of once you say the words, you can't go and pick up those words.
Absolutely.
Saying it every language.
You're telling me, I mean, once the words got out, it's sharper than a double-edged sword.
But and another thing also is your facial expression. I mean, try to remain neutral. Do not show your anger, because we have no idea what battle the other person is going through.
Right.
All right. Yesterday, I lost a business. All right. I lost a client, and it was not going anywhere. The project, I already know that something was not right. Okay. I was very angry. I was very upset. And there was my mother. She was telling me, you haven't taken the clothes, you haven't done that, you haven't done this. And I just told myself, never mind. Your mother doesn't know what you're going through, Kamine. Relax, calm down. So I just told her, Mom, just give me a minute. I went into the room. I was very sad. I had tears in me, but it's fine. I couldn't blame her. Okay. And that's when my husband called and he was like, are you okay? I said, I'm not okay. And he was like, where's your mom? My mom is there. I had to distance myself from her, all right? Because I don't want to show my emotions to other people. I was angry at that time, and I was angry at myself. Okay, I felt like as if I didn't do anything, but what difference would it make if I show my anger to other people? We are only going to spoil our relationship with another person. Like I told you all just now, right? In a day, we spend 8 to 9 hours at work. Are we going to go angrily every day? Don't everybody have bills to pay? All right. So end of the day, it boils back to yourself. If you can't manage the situation, we have to learn how to manage ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. And we have to be always aware on what kind of emotions or facial expressions or body language that we are emitting outside. That is really very important, Charles.
And how do you give us some tools that you have personally used? I know that, I'm the founder of the Asia Pacific consultation on mindfulness, marketplace mindfulness. And it taught me a lot personally, that you need to be mindful about in the present, you see, where you are right now. And how do you manage that mindfully? And it's an art. I think all these tools are an art of how to really take time off, like tee up, and just go out and take a breath and all that. How is that one of the ways that you kind of like horse up and power up?
Okay, I'm not going to say I'm 100% mindful like at everything at all times. No, we are all humans. Again, I go back to the baseline. We are humans. We have our minds would be actually wandering around. Okay, I always ask this to my participants as well, guys. How many of you are thinking of lunch right now? How many of you are thinking of going and picking up your kids, and they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I just thought about it. All right. We can divert our attention at any point of time, but the matter is, are you going to come back?
Right.
All right. Ask this question to yourself. Where am I? What am I listening to? Like right now, if we have viewers, like what is this woman talking about? All right, come back. Okay, so coming back, that we should always have that awareness. Come back. All right. Wherever your mind goes wandering, come back. Okay, and ask your questions as well. What am I listening to? Why am I listening these questions? Okay, who is speaking? Who am I listening to? And what is her objective? And how does it add value to my life or my work? All right, even if your boss is angry, right? People talk about managing yourself, but let's say if your boss is angry, if you can't control your boss, I mean, obviously you can't control your boss. Okay, you control yourself and say like, never mind. He probably had a bad day. It's okay. Right, let him vent it out and then go back and try to communicate. And to all the bosses out there, if you actually do that, go back to your employees, talk to them.
Yeah, I think this is anger management is like a lifestyle. It's in our genes, right? But it really it took a better part of my life because anger ultimately led to stress. And
Right.
and that's like a machine that is winding down on the inside, but outside is functioning. And you don't realize that how much these two qualities of anger and stress can actually kill you. And
Right.
so you seem to be a lady that's very nice and calm, and you can take storms and weather through them. Is it a gene issue, a character issue, or have you
No.
developed a talent for it?
A lot of experience. Today is a crazy day. Okay, I'm actually in my client's place right now. All right. And then there was my husband. He called me and said, like, Kami, I want to know what time can I book the flight? I was, my emotions were shooting high. I said, look, it's a busy day. Why not you manage your own flight booking? And I hung up. Right? Because if I continue to talk, then I'm probably going to channel the stress that I'm going through to him. Okay, so you have to know where to cut. You have to know when to show your anger and when not to show your anger. And Dr. Charles, I'm not perfect, but
Nobody
I have
is.
this one person, okay, probably is my better half. Okay, he's the only one who is actually, he knows all my emotions. But other than that, I don't let out anger to anybody. I mean, like, what's the point?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I've got it written down here, and this is the words from John Maxwell. He says, "To be human is to mess up. To connect, you must fess up, and that
Right.
means you must admit to your mistakes and shut down." Now, I tell you, the other thing that is very practical is coming back to communication. Now, coming back to thought. Okay, I get messages from my own staff. They think on something and they text all broken English, broken messages. They can't communicate, even in straight lines. So how important is the thought pattern before you communicate it out through words or actions? Tell us that play. How important is the thinking process in order to be able to communicate? You talked about fear, which can be a mind block. And that
Right.
can affect the way you communicate because of judgment. And even how is there a link between your thinking mindset and the way you communicate, and ultimately how it comes out in either written or spoken language?
All right, most people, especially if a particular language, they are not strong in it. Okay, say for example, if you're not strong in English, we tend to type out or email whatever we think will come out just as
Right.
words, right?
Absolutely right.
So why? Because they're actually doing an inside translation and they just write that. That should not be the way. Okay, so I always tell my participants to space out, put it in point forms, go back to the 5 basic questions like what are you writing for and what do you actually want to tell? Okay, if there's any time frame or if there's venue, put it in point forms. This is very important. All right. And if I see anyone who is not doing well in English, I always give them tips. Like, when it comes to communication, why not you go and brush up on your communication and give them a time? All right.
Right.
Yes, you're very right. I mean, anything that they think comes out as words. That should
Yes.
not be the way.
Okay. So coming back to again communication, because I can tell you, you are such a gift, because the art today is communication. And in fact, in UK right now, they're contending for who's going to be the next prime minister, and there are 2 contenders, and it's amazing how they are trying to communicate what they have in their mind to the people at large, to the party at large. And the best communicator is the one who's going to be chosen, you know. So as we wind up, we talked about anger, we talked about stress. Let's come back to stress for a little bit more. How do you handle stress when you're communicating as a tutor to your people in your training sessions? How important is stress management, which is important?
I go through stress before training because I want to make sure everything is perfect. All right. During training, I enjoy, but there would be some times when I reflect onto, or maybe let's say if participants are not up to my expectations, I think you have to identify why they are sitting there. I mean, they're sitting there as your participant, all right, to learn from you. So give them the best. So similarly goes to work. All right, or similarly goes to family members. Okay, your family member may be good at something and you may not be good at that. For example, your wife may be good at financial and you may be good at more on that like organization part. All right, so if they don't understand something, accept that. All right, and feed them the knowledge. You are there for a reason. I think if every one of us can actually identify the purpose, right? Like, why am I sitting here? Why am I even talking to some people? It's because you are the subject matter expert in that area. So if you can understand that, then you can communicate better.
And to be misunderstood, I think that a lot of damage has been done because you actually mean well, but you have communicated a message that has been misunderstood.
Right.
And that can have consequences, you see.
Right.
And I find that sometimes it's hard for one to rewind and replay. Because you actually meant well. I mean, you know, it's one of the aspects and the art of communication. I meant well, but it was taken in a totally different way, and you end up paying the consequences of that. True and true.
True, very true, very true. And Dr. Charles, I think one way to actually avoid this from happening is actually asking them back and telling to them, like, for example, if let's say I'm talking to a friend and she comes and tell me, you know, a long story, and I tell her back my opinion, okay, and I see some sort of changes on her facial expressions, and I would go like, you know what, okay, tell me what's in your mind, talk it out, tell them, you know what, this is what I meant, the reason why I told this is because of you, okay. And Dr. Charles, we can't go out there expecting every one of us to follow what we say.
Right.
If you know what you're saying is valid, is the truth, it's the fact, and you're telling it for their own benefit, then that's our limit. You know, we can't change them to do what we want. Goodness for them. No, we can't do that. So we should also know our boundaries and our limits when we are communicating with others.
Right. I mean, this is well said, because at the end of the day, I've found, at least in my journey, that to be misunderstood because of wrong communication can be consequentially dangerous. And you can lose friends, you can lose, you know, loved ones, you can lose, you know, if you're wrongly gone onto the wrong platter.
Yeah, I was about to say this also. I think along my journey, I have also lost my friendship, and also some family members may not be aligned with me. All right, maybe we have different mindsets, but that's okay because I meant well. I can advise for their wellness, all right, but I can't expect them to do it because end of the day, it's their journey.
Yes.
All right.
So tell me, is one born a good communicator?
It's a skill.
There you go. Okay.
It's a skill that you can learn, enhance, and implement if you want to. It's a choice that you have.
Right. And it's a skill that, it's a tool, right? It's a skill that you can learn.
You can learn. You can definitely learn. You can definitely implement. All right. And if I have one thing to say on how to be a better communicator is engage with your audience. All right. Use real life examples. Use your examples. You don't have to talk about, you know, leaders of other countries. All right. Talk about the leaders in your community. Talk about yourself. People will be able to relate better.
And you know, the other thing that I found in you know, just talking about us, you know, living and working in the working environment, if you cannot change a situation, you end up changing yourself first.
Right.
Because I'm sure in your workplace, there are many situations where you can't change because you're working, you entered into a client's office. You can't change the environment around you. but you can change yourself and how you adapt and how you communicate while you are there, right? Can you just end up by that point of how important it is that when we reach a situation where stress, anger, all the emotions that fill up a human life, we can't change, but we have to end up changing ourselves.
Okay.
How do you adapt to that? And as a tutor, I mean, you're tutoring us on how to be better
Right.
communicators to ourselves first, and then to others, right? So take us
Right.
to a spot where we'll always remember your words and and put it into action.
I think what you asked is actually a very valid question, Dr. Charles. All right. I think humans, we always have a choice. All right. If you take my journey, for 2 years, I was lecturing somewhere. For 9 years, I was attached with a training organization. Okay. And at one point, I realized that the stress that I was going through was not worth it. Okay, so I moved on. And after moving on also, I realized that there are some clients who's very worth working with, and there are some people who I don't want to work with. Okay, so it's a choice that we make. All right. So whether I can always work with people who I feel I don't want to work with, because end of the day, I still get the money. All right. But that's not what I want. I don't want that stress. Okay, so you can choose whether you want to go through the stress and end of the day be able to pay your bills, or you don't want to go through the stress. Okay, you want to move to a different working place. Maybe they have a better culture. I'm not sure. But for me, I believe that if you have that credibility, the ability, you have a choice in life. And always, always, always build yourself to a level where you have choices in life.
Right. Well, that's well said and well spoken. And talking about choices, we have the gift of choosing, but we don't have the gift of the consequences of what we choose.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we are still answerable to those consequences.
Oh dear Lord, I love this question. And let me tell you this, the word, okay, accountability. Be
Right.
accountable for your actions. No matter what happens, all right, like today, I'm on my own. It's been 5 years now, all right. There are times that my payment comes in on time. There are times that I will be like, oh gosh, when this payment is going to come in. That is a consequences that is from my action. I chose this journey. No
Right.
complaints.
Okay. So what's the road forward for you? Where do you go from here? For those, there might be somebody out there that might want to take a career in communication, because it is the key today. In the 21st century, it's all about communication, and that's a big failure because of language. And like here, in Sabah, I find that everybody speaks in BM, Bahasa Malaysia, right? But English is not their first language. And so when it comes to communication and messages that come in, they're all broken and there's no one sentence that is straight. So what's your journey ahead? Tell if somebody wants to interested in taking this course on communication, what's your next step? Tell us, we'll follow you.
I think, this past few days, people have been asking for my profile, all right? And I actually concluded, like, as I was driving here, that the 4 areas that I want to focus on is that definitely communication and English language, all right? Apart from that, forming positive work culture and also growth mindset. I think these things are very important as a human.
What mindset? Sorry?
Growth mindset.
Growth mindset. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
all right. We need to go. I am a person who believes that if you're born as a human, you're born with all the capabilities in the world. Okay. Whether you want to use it or not, it's up to you. Okay. So, and I don't believe in sitting at one workplace and getting 3,000-4,000 ringgit and complaining, oh, what, this is not enough for me. They are not giving me more. I'm not that kind of a person. For me, growth is very important. That's the key to everything. All right. So when you start growing, you will stop complaining.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so this would be the area that I want to.
No, that's a wonderful point. I mean, even at my stage, after working for 40 years, I'm still doing HEARTtalk with you. I'm still learning. I'm still reaching out to where I would have faltered, and someone else has picked up along and found a way out. And I think this is my message to the sandwich gen. Those of you who are following us, and even on I see my goodness, this Instagram is still running. And all of y'all are supposed to get on to HEARTtalk with Dr. Charles Lee on YouTube. But anyway, I think they're just listening. I hope they can listen to you too.
Right.
but it's a recorded on Zoom, so you'll be able to get what I'm saying. But Kamini, at the end of the day, when you talk about family and you talk about communication, I think that's the closest network that you develop your skills in communication. Is that the moment a baby is born, you're communicating with the child, and there's so much of the feel and the touch that's involved.
Right.
And we are paying a cost of that because of the environment we are currently in. This world is fragmented, it's disrupted, there's so much of distraction. It's just tearing all of us in different directions. And I think the gift of communicating to one another, that it's a shared journey. It's no more me, myself, and I. It's about how I can share this 1 hour with you and learn from you. I think if we're willing to communicate and learn from each other, that itself is a key to a successful life, isn't it? And so once again, as we wind up this session with you, Kamine, give us some take-home points that we can keep, some nuggets, the essence of whenever you plan on talking about communication. What's number one, number two, and number three? And the reason why I'm asking you is this: in my field, I always talk about one scientist. His name is Robert Boyle. And Robert Boyle was the father of chemistry. 350 years ago, Kamini, he wrote a 20-point wish list. All right. And if you Google his name and you type there 20-point wish list, that means he wrote what would science do and could do in the years to come. Number one was the prolongation of life. And number two was the recovery of youth. And both of that, over the last 350 years, people are living longer. And with that, there are more diseases and all that. So there's always a points list in whatever we do, right? So for me, it's prolonged youthfulness as a plastic surgeon. So for you, your take home every time you get onto a spot and it's about communication, give me your top 3 points for us to always remember that these are the key nuggets that you would put in first when you plan your whole presentation or talk or tutoring. What are the top three that you have put as your milestones in your own life which matter?
I'm still learning also before I tell my points. All right. Number one is engage with people. All right. As much as we grow in
engagement. All right.
Engagement. Okay. All right. No matter how far you grow in technology, no matter how far you go, engage with people. Okay. And no matter how far you go, don't forget the security guards who open the doors for you. All right. Don't forget the toll gate guys. All right. Say a good morning, you make your day. Okay. Never have a fear of judgment. It doesn't matter how people want to perceive you. If you are well, they perceive you well and move on. All right. And last but not least is, like I said, every one of us do mistakes, right? And we have moments where we may let our anger out. All right. But another way of handling it is apologize if you feel that you've hurt the person. That is also a big thing in communication. What most of us think is that we show our anger and we walk out. That should not be the way. All right, so come back, rectify the situation, always stay calm and evaluate your actions. Okay, that will help you to become a better communicator.
Powerful, nice. The top 3, and for those of you who are writing it down, number 1 is, Mary, engagement. Number 2, judgment. And number 3 is, never fail to come back and say sorry, right?
Sorry, yeah. I think thank you and sorry are 2 words that is very
gratitude. Would gratitude
takes you far. Yeah.
Takes you far. Okay. So with that, Kamine, listen, we want to say thank you to you and for all of those of you who have joined us on the ENER Club. Once again, we want to, we'll have you back. And, we can go in further into the real dynamics of what communicating is. The root word would be commute. Is that correct? To commute is to take from one place to another, right?
Yeah.
So communication takes you from where you are to where you want to go or where you want to be.
Definitely.
And that's the skill that we can learn from you. So once again, all the best to you, Kamine. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon at a lunchtime table talk session. And we hope that we'll be better people and communicate in a much better way, having heard you today. Okay?
Thank you so much, Dr. Charles and team. Thanks a lot to the lady behind the camera.
Yes, Mary, and I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you. Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Thanks
have
a
a
lot
good
to the
day.
audience.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.